Well, hello, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So I found you, I think it was YouTube, and then I saw you on Vero, and I don't know, are you on Facebook and Instagram and all of the things?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram a lot. Facebook, less and less with each passing year. I feel like Facebook, I'm kind of almost disappeared from. I posted a few times in the last maybe 6 months or so. That's about it.
Well, the when I went to YouTube and I had found yours because I look at all kinds of different photographers on YouTube, and I came across yours. It was the one. Let's see, what was the title of that? It was the rare moment everything came together. That was the first one
Hmm.
that I think I saw of yours, and it was your excitement that really drew me to you to see if I could get an interview. Is the fact that you did you were just like a kid in a candy store, and it was awesome to see.
Man, if there's one thing that makes nature photographer go crazy, it's the fog for sure. Especially us down here in the Southwest, just because we don't get it very often. It's just the conditions don't ever line up for it. So when it happens, we kind of lose our mind and run around like chickens with their head cut off.
Oh, yeah, I guess it's mostly just dry air always there.
Yeah, and the ground is just solid rock pretty much. So there's not a whole lot of soaking in the ground and a lot of moisture in the ground itself. So when it happens, it rains for a few days and so the dew point lines up with that temperature. And like I said, it's maybe once a year if we're
Oh my
lucky, if
goodness.
we average it out. Yeah, sometimes it'd be 2 or 3 times, but then it's I think it's happened twice so far this year. It's about it.
That's I know for me, I live close to the Everglades, and there for a while when I was in Homestead is about 5 miles from the park. And you
Mhm.
would think that you would get fog all the time there, but it was still a rare occurrence. Now,
Hmm.
if you went often, you would several times a year you could find fog, but it just never seemed like the days that I went that it was there. But I couldn't imagine in Arizona how difficult it would be and how excited I would be
Oh
if I'd
yeah.
gotten fog there too. So, um, all right. So that's how I found you. And then I found you on Vero and we started chatting a little bit. You agreed to come on the show. I'm not sure what you were thinking, but you agreed. You're here now. So I appreciate that. How did you get into photography initially?
Initially, I kind of fell into it, and I fell into it later in life too. I was 35 years old when I bought my first camera. It came from just the love of being outdoors. I've always been, hiking, fishing, hunting, camping, all that kind of stuff growing up. My family all did it, and a lot of traveling. And from there, that's always been my first love, and that's what my photography has always been based out of, is just the love of nature. And so I don't do people photography or anything like that. It's everything outdoors, animals, landscapes, and it all started from there. Uh, and I can't even remember why I decided to buy a camera. I remember I was Googling, like, I didn't even know what a DSLR was. And I just kind of Googled what the best camera was at the time, and it happened to be a toss up between I read a couple different blogs. It was like the Nikon D3300 and then the Canon equivalent or whatever. And I think a couple of the blogs had said like the D3300 was just a little bit better on some, and I'm just like, all right, I'll just buy that one. And I've been with, the Nikon ever since. And as soon as I bought it, like I think I bought it on Amazon. And as it was being shipped to me, I went on and found YouTube, and I found actually it was Joshua Cripps.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I've
he
had
was the
him on the
very
show before.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's awesome guy, super entertaining. And just he's the first one that I found, and man, I was into it. I was looking at what f-stop was and what shutter speeds and aperture priority and all this stuff. So by the time I got the camera, I was already like, all right, I'm shooting an aperture priority and then this, I can't shoot an auto and all these things. So I became absolutely obsessed with it. Just right, I mean, immediately, right away, blending the creative and something that I never was really. I felt myself, I wasn't a creative person. I couldn't draw a stick figure to save my life, right? And but I feel like that's something that I've learned, I guess. Yeah, I think you can learn to be creative. I don't think it's something
Mhm.
that you definitely are born with, or, there's some people who are, some people who just have it.
Right.
I wasn't one of those people, but I really feel like you learn some things and you can kind of grow from that base of learning maybe some rules, like of course we get the rule of thirds and all that kind of stuff. But I surprisingly, this has been my creative outlet. I finally found it later on in life, but yeah, it's been nice. It's been quite the obsession since then.
No, yeah, I can totally relate. I am not a creative individual at all, and that was always something that I had to work for. The technical part came pretty easy. Read a book,
Mhm.
kind of understand what the camera does and what it's really looking for, and how you can
Mhm.
manipulate that to get what you want. But I didn't even know what I wanted. Some images I would look at, and I'm like, I really like that, and then some I would look at, and I have
Yeah.
no idea why I like it or didn't like it, and it's
Yep.
been an absolute fight for me creativity wise to to really grow as a photographer. I think that's
Mhm.
that's always my difficult part. I'll call it a Jekyll and Hyde photographer. You've got to be both. You've got to be Dr. Jekyll and get all the creativity right, but you or the technical right, but you got to be Mr. Hyde who does everything emotionally. And so
Right. Right.
it's where science meets creativity, and it can be difficult for some folks out there. Some it comes real easy. Some are really
Mhm.
creative and they do amazing things, but it's technically horrible. And then
Right.
some are like me, where you get it technically right, but you look at it and it's just flat. It's not a great image or anything. So it's the marrying of the two worlds. And you know, for me, looking at how you got into photography, that's great because you love the outdoors and that's what you loved. So the camera was an extension of what you love to do, and you get to show people the things you love. And that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's an important point you brought up is once you learn the why. I mean, it's easy to learn the what and the how, but once you learn the why you like something, why you don't, what catches your eye and why it catches your eye and how to work with that, I think that's one of the most important questions when you start to grow as a photographer. You learn the kind of how-tos and what shutter speeds and all the technical stuff and focusing and focus stacking and exposure and histogram and all these things that are technical. But I think once you learn the why, it really opens up a lot of things, with your own creativity and finding your own voice really in in photography is answering that question.
So I think it's pretty obvious that you like landscapes. Do you also do wildlife photography?
I do not nearly as much as I have wanted to. This year, I'm hoping to change that, but I've done some, not so much on YouTube. It's mostly landscapes. I've done some
Mhm.
commercial wildlife work for a local. The greatest job I've ever had was a commercial project for a local golf course. Uh, we got to photograph. Chris and I went out, and for 3 days, we had to photograph the wildlife on the golf course. And we'd done some other work for the golf course as well, just photographing the course itself, which is essentially landscape photography. Um, but they hired us to come shoot the wildlife, and there was bobcats and coyotes because
Wow.
it's right in the desert. There's like I think we saw 3 different bobcats
Wow.
in the 3 days, and then we saw some coyotes, we saw ospreys, we saw there's hawks and cardinals and all kinds of birds and everything. So it was man, that was a that was a dream job for sure. So yeah, I definitely will want to do more of it, and the hardest part I think is buying the lenses, but other
Yeah.
than that, I have the 100 to 400 Nikon now, which is a great lens. It's an okay wildlife lens. The variable aperture is kind of rough on, low light stuff, but one of the things I really want to do this year is do more of that for sure.
Yeah, you hear it said all the time that the gear doesn't matter. Well, the news flash is for sports and wildlife, the gear absolutely matters. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can do great things with, not the top of the line gear, and that's fine. But if you really, really want those amazing images that you see in the magazines and on TV and all that stuff, then you're going to have to fork out a lot of money for those high end lenses. Um,
That's
and
for
that can be
sure.
frustrating when you're looking. It's like, oh, that's a $14,000 lens.
Yeah.
Buy a
Yeah,
new
it's
car, buy
it's
a lens. It's really
right.
it's it's intensive, and that's okay. The 100 to 400s on my list as well, and that'll do for the kind of wildlife photography that I'll probably do. So that one's fine. And we can always rent lenses if it comes to it.
That's a big thing
Yep.
too, and that's before I buy any kind of big piece of equipment like that, I always rent it just to make sure that that's what I want, And it's a much cheaper way. If you only use a wildlife lens, once or twice a year, then it makes sense to rent it when you go use
Right.
it. If you have a trip to, Yosemite or something, or the Everglades or something like that, then I would definitely just rent it because, oh man, that's yeah, a cheap lens, is, five, six, seven, $8,000 for a wildlife lens, 600, 500 millimeters.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Nikon 400 4.5,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and it looks really, really good. It's also $2,600. So
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, but I think that that's probably a pretty good sweet spot if you want to do some wildlife photography. If you're
Mhm.
going to be a full time wildlife photographer, you're going to need more than that. But
Right,
for
right.
those of us who love landscapes but also do wildlife, that's a great lens too.
Yeah, and
Um,
there's some budget ones out there that are pretty good
mhm,
though. The Nikon, the 200 to 500 is like, I think it's around $1,100 brand new, $1,200 or something like that.
yeah,
It's pretty cheap compared, as far as wildlife lens goes. That's pretty cheap
yeah.
and it's a great lens. I rented it with my D850 when I had that a couple of years ago, and man, that's a fantastic lens for a good price.
And I was very happy to hear that Nikon is going to start letting third party companies do their lenses. So the stuff that
Yeah, that's a
Sigma
big
and
deal.
Tamron put out, I can't wait
Mhm.
for them to start getting some stuff out for the Z mounts. So,
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
uh, do you like teaching? Some folks I've heard are really good photographers or they're really good YouTube personalities, but they don't really care for people much. How about you?
I do like teaching. I like teaching from a distance. I like, I like, no, actually, no, I take that back. When I ran workshops before
Mm,
2020,
yeah,
and
me too.
the actual workshops themselves, being on the workshops in those few days that I'm there, I have such a blast, meeting these people, and I've stayed friends with a lot of them, and still chat with them and stuff. So that part, teaching, being hands on right there, I do actually love that a lot. But I also landscape photography for me is a very individual, I don't call it a sport, individual passion of mine. So it's either me and my wife will go out, and it's just very much a very personal thing for me to do. So being with a bunch of other people, I mean, I enjoy it, but I prefer, I think, just to do it on my own. So I like to teach, but I like to make videos about teaching, and I love the feedback that I get from it. I love that people are learning things and they're applying it and they're telling me how it changed their photography or that kind of stuff is absolutely just, it blows my mind how it's just such a good feeling, to have people say that. And I do love that part of it.
That's great. I've tried the videos before, and I'm going to keep chugging along at it. I'm pretty terrible at doing the videos. I don't know what it is. Back before COVID, I had the best year I've ever had in photography, and I went from that to $0. And that was a
Yeah,
pretty hard hit.
that's
And I had to shut
yeah.
everything down, and it just started. It took me a while to get things back, but the more I think about the workshops, I love teaching the workshops, and I wish I could do that on the videos, but I can't. I love teaching, but I have trouble staring at the little camera looking at
Yeah.
you, and then somebody walks by and they kind of give you that side eye. If you're in a place
Oh,
where there's a lot of
yes,
people,
yes.
and I'll clam up there and all that stuff. So when I see people like you that do an incredible job of these videos, I'm envious of you being able to do that, and I think it's great. I think it's we need more people like you out there that have such passion for it, that are good teachers, that are in good locations, that teach photography the way it should be, and I love it. So
Ah, thank you, thank you. It's definitely something that I've had to practice at. I was never very good at it starting out. I was really rough around the edges, and I would mess up a lot. And I got good at editing. Let's put it that way, because I just speaking to the camera isn't something that came natural to me. Some people are just great at it. I've seen people. I have friends of mine, Brendan Vance, and I'm not sure if you know who he is. I see him like in his videos walking through like the middle aisle of an airplane, just vlogging, just talking away, like no
oh my
problem.
goodness.
Yeah, and I can't even fathom doing something like that. Like I'll be on a trail or something. I'll make sure I get off the trail a little bit. And if someone walks by, I'll just stop, or I'll pretend, if they catch me in the act of holding up the camera while I'm walking or something, I'll just
Yeah.
pretend like I'm doing something else. It's, I
I,
don't,
I
yeah, I have a hard time in
I'm
front of
bad enough
people.
that I actually made my wife and son go upstairs while I did this interview, so that I didn't have them either walking by or looking over my shoulder. So yeah, I totally understand. If I could be out in the middle of nowhere without anybody around, then I think I'd probably be fine. But if there's going to be another soul within 100 miles of me, they'll find me.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And one quick little tip for you. I got a secret for making YouTube videos, especially the
Yeah.
teaching videos, is script writing. That
Oh, I've
has
never done that.
saved that has saved my life. I mean, I still like if I start talking to the camera, if I don't have it written out, at least a general idea what I want to talk about, I stumble through a lot of it, but script writing has helped. And then I have a teleprompter that actually goes over the lens of the camera. So I'm looking directly at the lens, but the letters are coming up, and I can read everything and I can have a little remote that stops and starts it. So I can go through and I can just record the whole video and I'm just the writing part of it then is the challenge because you don't want to sound like you're writing something. You want to sound like you're having a conversation. So
Right.
that's also another challenge in itself. But yeah, script writing has been a game changer for me, and it just makes editing easier. It makes talking easier. You know what you want to say, and you can change things up. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to write out the script, but
Yeah.
it works out better in a video when you can be clear and concise and deliver a video
Mhm.
with just a single idea. And because a lot of times we kind of go off on the tangents whenever we're just talking like a normal conversation.
Right.
In a YouTube video that doesn't work. You don't want to just talk about random things because people don't watch. And YouTube's a completely different monster when it comes to the content compared to photography. That's a whole different skill. I've been fortunate enough to have my wife. She works for a couple of big YouTubers. She's an editor now, and seeing how they work outside of the photography niche, and they're just machines, man. It's
Wow.
incredible watching them pump out videos and how good they are at their, and everything is calculated. And they, from landscape photography, when we would go out, like do a normal vlog, we would film ourselves walking and walk by the camera and then film ourselves pulling out the camera, and we talk about our composition. We don't really know what we're going to find when we first go out there. When we start walking
Mhm.
out to photograph something, we don't know what we're going to find, right? But that's kind of the backwards way to do it from a YouTube sense. YouTubers, they think of the thumbnail and the title first and the idea, and then they write out an intro. And that intro has to be like 10 to 15 seconds. You need to find out, viewers need to see within that first 10 seconds, like what you're there for. Is this my video? Is this,
Wow.
somebody who's watching a video? If you're just kind of rambling off for the first 30, 40, 50 seconds, a minute, minute and a half, and you're just not really getting to the point, they're off. And you can see that in the analytics, man, they're gone.
Wow.
So you have to be just, everything's got to be calculated. You have to have an intro. You better be concise on what you're about to talk about. And you better just keep there the editing and just, oh, actually, it's a different monster altogether. It's
Sounds
pretty
painful.
wild. Yeah. It's not as easy as just turning on the camera and start talking, that's for sure. There's a lot of work that goes into that video.
Yeah, the script writing I had never considered, or I thought about it. I'm like, nah, it's all right. I can talk through it. So the first couple of times I tried to do videos, I'd spend 15 minutes doing a video, make a mistake, and then stop and scrap it and start over without
Mhm.
doing any type of post processing or anything to make it work. And finally, eventually, after way too many times, I finally realized I can splice and cut and all that kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah, the video is difficult. The script writing, it's all of that is difficult. But then you toss in what you're talking about and trying to keep them on the page or on your video as soon as they click on it. That's a whole nother beast. Like you said,
Yes.
being concise up front and exactly what they're there for. And if not, they're gone in 15 to 30 seconds. That's it.
Oh, yeah,
You had your
absolutely. And
chance.
we would be looking at analytics, and it's something that as a photographer and as a creative, it's not that attractive, right? That's a part of
Right.
the work that it's not
That's the
something
work.
you want to concern yourself about, right? It's just the
Yeah.
stuff you have to do. But if you want to grow and you want to make good videos and have people watching and watching all the way through, which YouTube is a pretty simple concept. You want people to click on your video, you want them to watch the entire video, and you want them to click on another one, right? It's a simple
Mhm.
concept, but it is not easy at all
That's
because you'll see in your analytics, like we would see where if I just showed my talking head without any B-roll overlaid for more than like 20 seconds, people would click off and you would see the graph go down, the viewership just drop.
wow.
Or if Chris and I got on at the same time, people were conditioned to see that that was the end of the video, so they would click off right away before we even said anything. They would see us both and they would be gone, like that was it.
Wow.
And there's little things like that. If you use certain words, sometimes people will just click off, or just certain things that happen. Like it is amazing looking at the graphs and seeing people's viewership drop off, and then looking at, you can see at the point where they drop off, you can watch your video. It shows where they drop off, and you can see why. You can see what you're doing. You're like, man, they don't like that at all, right? So next time, maybe I shorten this up, or maybe I put some B-roll over it and quicker cuts, and it got to the point where Chris and I now, she still looks over my videos sometimes, and it's like, nope, you got to put something here. You got to cut this. You said this twice. Don't do it again. You should cut this out. And it's just,
Wow.
yeah. If I repeat which we all repeat myself, let's say if I give a tip
Mhm.
and then I give it again later, she's like, nope, cut one of them out. Because if they hear it again, they're off. You know what I mean? You start repeating yourself, they're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. The YouTube
Wow.
audience is a very, very fickle beast.
But they always leave wonderful comments, right?
They do, for the most part, they
Yeah.
do. The vast majority is extremely positive.
That's right.
But I just had a YouTube short, which I don't usually make too many of those. I think I made like 2 or 3 of them, just because I'm not into the short form content. But I made a YouTube short about focus stacking, and it went viral. I think right now it has a little over 500,000 views, and I made it like a month ago. But the amount of comments on there that are negative are it's rough, it's rough. You gotta have thick skin, that's for sure. Because there are people that, the bigger you get and the more views you get on your videos,
Mhm.
there are going to be the people out there who have something negative to say. I was watching Nick Page, who I chat with every once in a while. He had a video about leaving Sony and going back to Canon,
Oh yeah, he had
and
to take it down.
he had to take it down because there were so many bad comments, and people just they do not like when you when you change brands, and there's the tribalism is real in the photography world, that's
That's
for
right.
sure.
It is. It is. It's not just cameras or lenses. It's computers. What computer do you use? What
Yeah.
program do you use?
Oh yeah, it's Apple versus PC, it's Chevy versus Ford, it's
Yeah,
it's
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 always
all
that way. It's the Bills versus
yeah,
I don't know,
the
some other football
Patriots
team.
probably,
The
yeah,
Patriots.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. People I think don't realize sometimes, and this is a social media thing in general. People don't realize that it's a person on the other side of the camera there. It's not, we're not just, yeah. It's easy to dehumanize people with a lot of subscribers and views and people who are kind of have a public profile, but you got to
Yeah.
understand that it is people that are making these
Yeah.
videos, and they're putting a lot of work into it, and it's it can be rough sometimes.
I don't know if you're like me at all. It happens with the photos that I'll put up, where I'll put up a photo and you'll have 100 people that love it, and you'll have one person that has some negative comment. And of course,
Yeah.
which one do I focus on? Is that
That's
one negative
exactly
comment?
oh yeah, absolutely. That's the one that you're later on in the day, you're like at the gym or something, or you're making dinner and you're just thinking about it and it's making you upset. It happens. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It could be 99% positive, but that one negative comment, it's gonna eat at you. It's
Yeah, what
us
I'm
as
trying to
humans.
do is the industry that I work in outside of photography is very critical industry, and we always take the feedback in the spirit that it's given. Someone gives feedback, they're giving it for a reason, so try to look at that and not the individual. But that's much easier said than done, of course.
Mhm.
But I had a video where I got the Z9 this year, and I did a Z9 video, and I put the video up, and a few people liked it. I don't get a lot of people that go and look, because I don't do any of those smart things with YouTube. I just a talking head. But
Mhm.
I put that out, and a few people liked it. And then you had one person that wrote this big long review about how I was just regurgitating what other people had said, and they can go on anywhere to find it, and on and on and on. I'm like, wow, this person just spent half an hour of their life talking about how bad my video was. Of course, I ignored all the others, and that's the one I focused on. But the more I got to thinking about it, the more I realized that there's some things out of what he said that I can take, and I can
Mhm.
make myself better. So those negative comments, yeah, they hurt sometimes, because everything we do is a personal thing. At least for me, photography is very personal. So whenever someone has bad things to say, I get defensive. But it's that
Oh
one
yeah.
person. But try to take it with a grain of salt, and try to learn from it and move on to the happier comments.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. As a creator, you definitely have to separate someone who's just being a jerk from somebody who's got something maybe negative to say, but they have a point, and maybe it's something you can fix or change or make better or
Yeah,
improve on for sure. Absolutely.
yeah. So we've been talking a lot about these videos. How did you get started in them? What made you decide, hey, I'm going to make a video of this and put it up on YouTube?
Well, it started out just a way to share my trips, my hikes, with family and friends, and they would watch, I would get 3 or 4, 10 views or something on it. Uh, but more people started to watch, and people who found my channel that just share the passion of going out and improving their photography. And I wasn't teaching at the time. It was more just flailing around with a GoPro and talking about random stuff that I had no idea what I was talking about at the time. I started YouTube almost immediately after I just got into photography, and it was just
Wow.
about me learning, and it grew from there into I started to kind of get my foot, or just kind of find my footing in photography, and starting to improve a little bit. And then people started asking questions and I would answer, and then I would kind of do things on the video as far as sharing things that I was learning and things that I knew.
Mhm.
But it changed when I made a video called Learn Milky Way Photography in 5 minutes.
Oh,
That video, it started off like a normal video, but about 3 months after I released it, I was actually in Colorado, and I was driving back, and I stopped to get something to eat, and I was looking at my phone, and all of a sudden I realized that the video was just, it was hitting like 3,000, 6,000 views, which was a lot for me at the time.
yeah.
And it just kept going and going and going. I think it reached, in that first year, it reached like over 1 million views.
Wow.
It just, yeah, it went crazy, and I got a bunch of subscribers from that. And then I started kind of really realize, like, okay, wow, this is something. So I started to, actually, right after that, I took a break. I was like, man, I was watching it, but they're doing some life changes, so I didn't really took a break from YouTube. But then I got back on it again, and started really going towards being serious about making videos, really diving deep into, thumbnails and titles and subjects, and helping people and teaching, and these kind of things that people were really loving about this video that I had made. They loved the fact that you could just learn something so easily. A 5 minute
Yeah.
video, you can learn how to take photos of the Milky Way. And I
Wow.
got a lot of positive comments on that. So I wanted to keep helping people. And that's kind of what started my YouTube channel as far as teaching and stuff.
How long have you been doing the YouTube thing?
I started in 2016.
Wow. So not
Yeah.
it's 8 years, I guess.
Yeah,
If
yeah, about 8
well,
years, almost 8
almost nine.
years.
It'll be nine
Yeah.
this year. And you have, I'm looking right now, 47,000 subscribers.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Oh man, I it's that's a big number, and I mean, on a YouTube scale,
Yeah.
maybe not so much, but just for me, 40,000 is a lot of people. I mean, imagine talking on a stage with 40,000 people in a state, you know what I mean? That's absolutely terrifying.
Wow. See, I'm really close to where you're at right now. I think I've got 62, as
Oh,
in
see, I'm
62, not
running with the big
62,000.
dogs here. I'm running with the big dogs.
That's right. No, congratulations on that. That's
Ah,
fantastic.
thank you. Thank you.
Um,
Yeah,
y-
it's been a wild ride for sure. It's something I never thought, when I first started out, it was just something for fun, and as I started to grow and realize that I could take this a little more seriously, then yeah, 40,000 is something I just, obviously it's a dream of everybody's, like, oh man,
yeah,
I'd love to have a big audience, but oh man,
but then you
40,000 is a
have a
lot.
big audience, you know.
Then you have a big audience, yeah. But also I want to say this, that having a big audience doesn't necessarily mean what people think it means on YouTube,
Right.
right? Like, it doesn't translate into, hey, I can quit my job now and go go full time as a YouTuber. That's I wish that's how it works, but
No,
there's a lot goes into that with the views and stuff like that. My YouTube ad revenue might pay for my gas for 1 month, if that. And luckily, people think that you have 40,000 subscribers that you're full time YouTube, and no, it doesn't work
no,
that way.
no. Yeah, it takes a whole lot more than that. I mean, you could start doing coffee videos like Peter McKinnon, and
Yeah,
probably make a killing. But
right, right.
I think that's what he does full time now. But it's such a rare thing. That's the dream everybody thinks of. Oh, I'm going to
Hmm.
do YouTube, and I'll make enough money I can quit my day job, and then but the reality is that that becomes your day job, and
Right,
that's
it's still
hard
work.
work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
you go from working a 9 to 5 to working, 5 in the morning till 5 at
That's
night, if not longer. There's a lot of work involved
Yep.
in YouTube, rather than just, making a video and posting it online. It's a lot of work for sure.
Yeah. Well, like I said, congratulations. That's awesome. I'm glad to see
Oh,
you've
thank
got
you.
the following that you've got, and your videos. They're they're just fun to watch. and you do an excellent job of speaking and teaching and getting excited, and it's clear. And I just, after I stumbled on it, I'm like, how in the world did I not see him before? But I'm glad I found you now. So,
Oh, that's thank you very much. That's very kind. Yeah, I
so
I
all those
love doing
negative
it.
comments will
So
be from me now. So you'll
right,
start
yeah,
seeing those horrible
that's
comments.
right.
You got to quit, sell your
Yeah,
gear.
that's right. You are a terrible YouTuber.
That's right.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I still have fun making videos, and I'll keep making videos as long as I'm having fun doing it. I do take breaks once in a while though, just because
Yeah.
I think you need it. Sometimes you do get burned out. I think every
Mhm.
YouTuber ever, even just even non-YouTuber photographers, I think if you do it too much, you when you first get into photography, I think for the first few years, you just eat, sleep, drink
Yep.
photography. You listen to every podcast out there, you're watching every YouTube video out there, and you're learning everything. And then you go out and you're doing it, and then you're thinking about it when you're home, you're planning vacations around it.
Yep.
I think everybody kind of goes through some burnouts, if not once, maybe several times throughout their photography journey for sure. And I've definitely, with YouTube, it's how can I say this? It's an added stress, I guess you would say.
Mhm.
Trying to go out to make videos, there's definitely a pressure there with making videos for your audience, being there for your audience and doing that, whatever it is, weekly or monthly videos, and then trying to get a photo. So now you're pressured to get a photo, or maybe the video doesn't work or something. So there's some added pressure there that maybe doesn't need to be sometimes. And that's one thing I need to get better at too, is just going out without making videos and trying to improve my photography. It's not just about me going out and teaching and sharing with, my experience, which is great, but also maybe doing it without the video camera rolling, just going out and really experimenting and trying to, you know, broaden my own photography, and get a little more creative with things. And it's hard to do that when you're trying to make a video.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've heard of Rick Salmon.
Mhm.
I've talked to him a few times. He's been doing it for 40, 50, 60 years. I don't know. It's been a very long time that
Yeah.
he's been doing this. And I asked him one time, how do you get out of being uninspired? When you get to that point that you're burnt out, you don't feel like doing anything. And his advice was to just keep shooting. He's like, just keep shooting, even if it's just a little bit here and there. He said, whatever it is that's stressing you out, just push that away and kind of get back to what it was about photography that you love to do. And I was like, that's a load of horse stuff. That doesn't work. So I just ignored it, and I kind of went down a deep hole there. And eventually my wife said, we live here in Homestead. I'm from Tennessee originally, but we lived in Homestead, Florida. And she goes, you ought to just go out here and shoot what we've got here. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I kind of started that, and that revitalized everything, because I got out and I started shooting like he told me to do, and it was pretty awesome. So yeah,
No,
if you're
that's
one of those photographers that you're in a funk right now, or you're not inspired, or you're just burnt out, and you don't want to go, it's okay. It'll pass, because I know for me, this is part of who I am effectively. So it's something I'm always going to come back to, and something I'll always find interest in. But there may be down times, and you can probably hear that on my podcast, where I don't have a podcast for a couple of months sometimes, or whatever, but they'll eventually come back because I find it. So if you're one of those uninspired photographers, just keep shooting. Absolutely keep shooting.
absolutely, absolutely, and
Yeah.
switch it up too. Like I said,
Yeah.
that's the great thing about being a nature photographer is if landscapes are, you're kind of getting over it. For wildlife, man, I got a riparian reserve right here by my house that I go down to, and there's, get herons and egrets and all these beautiful animals here. And actually, funny enough, you're very familiar with this animal. A roseate spoonbill just showed up here a
Oh
couple
yeah.
of years ago, and we don't have
Wow.
those here at all. But all of a sudden, it just showed up one year. Now I think there's a couple of them. It's been here in the past couple of years, but it has eluded me. I've been there probably, I don't know, 2 dozen times in the last couple of years, and I have yet to see it. But I see it all the time online. People are posting, and I think there's a conspiracy against me photographing the spoonbill. But
Yeah.
yeah, just
We
switching it up. Switching it up is always good. Wildlife, astro, landscape, do something different.
yeah. And yeah, if you're one of those weird people that like to take pictures of other people, then that'll help as well. I
Yeah.
tried the wedding photography and the portrait sessions guy for a while, and that was not going to work.
Nope, I have no desire. I tried, family portraits once, and I did a wedding for a buddy of mine, and I just have 0 desire. It's like I said, my photography is always based in nature, and that's where I love to
Yeah.
do it. So it's not just having a camera in my hand all the time, taking pictures of everything, street photography, all that kind of stuff. I don't have that desire for that. I mean, I
Mhm.
would probably do it if I had the chance, if someone was with me and, "Hey, you wanna do some street photography?" But yeah, maybe, I guess. But for me, it's always based in nature and my experience in nature. That's where the love starts, and that's
Yep.
that's where it ends, right? Like, I just for me, people, nope.
Yep. No, if I think from what I'm understanding here is if you didn't have a camera, you'd still be outside enjoying nature, doing those things.
Absolutely. That is my
That's
first
great.
love, and that's something that, like I said, I'll go on a hike. Chris and I have been hiking a lot more lately without the camera, and that's something that we love to do a lot, and that's just get outdoors. If I don't have the camera, if I could only pick one, it would be just being outside and being outdoors rather than having a camera.
That's fantastic. It's always get back to what made you fall in love with it.
Yep,
That's
absolutely.
and for me, I grew up in East Tennessee, so I grew up around the Smoky Mountains. That was Sevierville. Those areas were, I don't know, maybe 20 miles from my house. So I grew up in the national parks there, and it was, I was always outside, and that's why I wanted a camera in the beginning.
Yep.
Well, that and because Peter Parker was also a photographer, so
Right.
yeah, that's why I wanted it at 8 years old. But
Right.
still, it was always being outside. My first photographs with the camera were outside, and sometimes it's nice to leave the camera home and just go. If you do that, though, just know that the best conditions you've ever seen
Absolutely.
will be
That
there.
is the law of the universe right there. That's a tale as old as time. I left my camera at home and the greatest light that ever was. It happened right over Walmart. It's the best sky I've ever seen. But yeah, that's it for me is nature, man. I don't know if you guys listening have ever been around like close to an elk when it's bugling, early in the morning, you got
Yeah.
frost coming out, you can see its breath and I was probably the closest I've been to an elk was when it bugled was probably maybe 30 yards and you could feel it in your chest, man. It was an experience that I'll never forget. And that's something that I live for, especially with wildlife, is just those little moments where it's just you and the animal or you and nature. And that's what I tell people when I was running workshops is don't forget to look up from the back of your camera. Don't
Yes. Enjoy the
experience
moment.
things through the back of the camera. Look up and realize what you're looking at here and just enjoy it for a second. And those beautiful moments, man, I'll never forget. And that's where my love is born out of, is those moments right there. And if I have a camera, great. But it boils down to just being in nature.
I find myself doing the same thing. I have to force myself sometimes to stand up away from the camera just to enjoy the moment. Because you get there, you get your tripod out, you're getting all your gear, and you're going haywire, and what's your settings and what's happening, the light, and you just get lost in the camera. And while that in itself is fine, sometimes, like you said, you miss the moment. So just step back, enjoy what's happening around you, and if you
Mhm.
happen to be by yourself and alone in the wilderness, that's all the better. At least it is for me.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I there was times where I would be upset if I was out somewhere without my camera and had this beautiful, colorful sky, and I'd be like, "Oh, I cannot believe I'm out there." Now I enjoy it. It's okay. There's gonna be
that's
another
great.
one at some point, but it can be hard too because you're just like, "Oh man, I was out yesterday and there's more than a cloud in the sky, and now today you get the greatest sunset ever, and I'm in here looking out my window at
Yep,
it." So
talking to me. So
yeah,
glad
right,
I could help.
right.
All right, we've talked a lot about everything. So you're a Nikon shooter, it sounds like.
I am, yes.
And are you a Nikon shooter because that's what you started with?
Yeah, it just happened to be
Yeah,
the first camera that I bought, and that was it. And my wife's different, she shoots Canon. That's kind of the same way with her. She just bought a Canon, and we just like it. It's great. They work just fine. They take pictures
yeah.
just like every other brand. So yeah, I started in Nikon and just no reason really to leave. I did actually buy a Sony one time when I was trying to upgrade my video camera. I bought the Sony A7 III, I want to
Yeah.
say. And it was okay, but I didn't like the menus at all, and I just the Z6 came out right after that, so I traded in and bought that. I didn't like the Sony just because I was used to the Nikon. I mean, I'm sure it take the photos were fine. The video was great. There was no wrong with it really. I used Nikon. I liked it. So I, thought I'd try something else. Didn't like it. So I came back.
Yeah, I actually did this. Well, not the same. I did the kind of both feet in the deep end of the pool kind of thing. So I've been with Nikon since 2001. In 2018, I up and decided that's it. I want to go mirrorless. So I'm going to go all Sony, since Sony is the king of mirrorless, and that's what
Right.
all the YouTubers said to go to. So that's what I went to. I sold all of my Nikon gear and went to Sony, and it was a great camera. It shot the images. It did everything it needed to. I didn't like the files as much, but they were easily, I could massage them to what I wanted without an issue. Great resolution, beautiful camera, does great autofocus, everything. And then I would get blisters on my finger when I would hold it, because it would rub on the lens and it just didn't feel great.
Right.
And I decided, you know what, I'll just go back to the Z6 II, and I sold all of that gear and went back to Nikon. And boy, let me tell you, that is expensive to sell all your gear, to buy, and then to sell all that gear.
Oh man.
My wife in the beginning, she's like, you just need to stay with Nikon. I'm like, anyway, I'm
Hey,
almost
if
to
it's
where
not broke,
I've got my
right?
lenses back. So,
Right. Yeah. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I have the same.
yeah,
That's kind of the person that I am, though. Like if I find something at a restaurant that I like, I'll just order that every single time I
every
go.
time.
Same, you know what I mean? It's same thing with Nikon. If it's not broke, don't fix it. It does
That's right.
great. So
Which one do you currently shoot with?
I shoot with the Z7 II
Okay.
now, as far as my landscape camera, and then I have the Z6, the Mark One, the original version, that I do all my video and time lapses and things like that with. So
Oh,
I'd
that's
like to
great.
get that Z9. That would be a nice one to get.
Yeah, I ended up getting it early this year, like in February, I think it was. I got my hands on one, and
Nice.
it's an incredible camera. I think the sensor for the Z7 II is a little bit better than the sensor that's in the Z9 as far as being able to pull out everything.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's a incredible camera, and the autofocus and all that stuff is great for wildlife or whatever. I do portraits for my kid plays hockey, so I do
Mhm.
hockey team
Okay.
portraits once a year, just as kind of a courtesy to the organization, that kind of thing.
Ah,
And
nice.
it's great for that kind of stuff too, but that's a bit overkill for doing those kind of things.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I've got the Z6 too as well. I kept
Mhm.
it when I bought the Z9, and I love it. I think they're great cameras. And you go on YouTube, and there'll be a huge swath of people that just absolutely hate it. They rail against it for whatever reason. It's terrible autofocus, it's terrible this, it's terrible that. But in reality, it's as good as the DSLRs that I ever had. So if you can take a
Yeah,
photo
it's
with a DSLR, you can take a photo with this, I promise.
absolutely, and that's one thing that I guess I would say I don't like about YouTube is, the videos that get clicks are the ones that are either controversial, you have
That's
really
right.
strong opinions, so if you have a Sony and you're reviewing a Nikon, you have to, and also there's always that the money changing hands, right? Sony's
Right.
or somebody's sponsoring your videos, or they're giving you free gear or whatever it is,
Yeah.
YouTube. If you have any piece of equipment more than like a year or two, that's a long time, because people are always constantly trying to send you new gear. But for me, like I've shot Benro, I've shot the same tripod since I think 2017. I have a giant Benro tripod. It's the 48 CXL, and I get comments every time I show it in my videos. What
Oh,
tripod is that? And I've been shooting the same one since 2017, and
nice.
that's a lifetime for YouTube. Right. It's a
Right.
year or two because I see people switching backpacks every year because people are sending out new backpacks every time, the companies that are, sending out got a new product, they send it out to the YouTubers, new filters, new everything, so that's something that unfortunately YouTube fosters a lot, is those strong opinions. And if something is
Mhm.
good, that means everything else is bad, and that's part of that tribalism that people, if you give an opinion on even if it's kind of a lukewarm opinion on something, you're gonna hear about it in the comments for sure. The gear
That's right.
videos are they do great, but they also they test your therapy for sure.
So yeah, I think one of the best advice I give to everybody is just shoot what you got.
Mhm.
It's going to make a great photograph.
Yeah,
You,
any camera, honestly, you can take. I could go out right now and with the $300 DSLR, I could use my original Nikon D3300 and the Tokina. What was it? The 11 to 15. beautiful lens. They took some amazing photos. I could print that, 24 by 36, no problem. It's a 24 megapixel crop sensor camera with a $300 lens. You can go out and take, I mean, I could take terrible photos with that one, just like I can with my Z7 II, right? Especially
Yeah.
for landscape photography. Now, obviously, when it comes to wildlife and sports, you have some autofocus things that
Mhm.
obviously a nicer camera is
Right.
going to make it easier to take these photos, but you don't need that kind of stuff. I mean, it's great to have it. It makes it easier, but I could go out and do sports with a Nikon D500, and a
Yeah.
200 to 500 lens. That's a $1,500 setup right there for lens and the camera. Go
Yeah.
out and take great photos
Absolutely.
or bad
Absolutely.
ones. I could probably-
Or bad ones.
or
Yeah.
bad
I've
ones.
taken some really bad photos on that Z9. I can tell you that much.
I could take that 200 to 500 and put it on my Z7 II and take terrible photos with that too. I have, trust me.
Yeah. Back I started back in the film days, and they always said the difference between an amateur and a professional was the size of the garbage can next to the light table.
Right.
So,
Yep,
oh my goodness.
absolutely, absolutely. We take a
So,
lot of bad photos, man.
oh yeah, I've taken a whole lot more bad ones than I have good ones. There's
Abs
no doubt.
Oh, by far. Still,
Yeah.
every day I'll come home with 100 photos and I might get 1 or 2 out of them. And actually, I just made a video, kind of my yearly wrap up of I like to roast my worst 5 photos and,
I'll
talk about
have to
my
watch
top 5 photos. And I take bad photos all the time. And I people are surprised when I tell them this. So I'll take and I'll show video, photos in my video. I'll maybe 30, 40 photos, whatever, however many videos I make throughout the year. I'll show a bunch of photos, but at the end of the year, however, the amount that I actually add to my portfolio,
it. Mhm.
maybe 3, 4 at the
Right.
most. Something that I saw a controversial guy, David Yarrow. He said something once, and aside from the controversial stuff that he's done or is accused of doing, one thing that he said that I like is his photos that stand the test of time. That's like 1 to 2 per year. And that's
Wow.
something that I think I feel kind of the same way. And I fall in and out of love with my photos a lot. Like I'll love a photo when I take it, but then a week later, I'm like, that is
Yeah.
terrible. Right. So throughout the year, I might end up with 3 or 4 photos that I'm absolutely still in love with and I'll put on my portfolio. But that's about normal for me, I think.
And that's a great way to improve your photography. And as your photography improves, you're going to scrutinize your own work a lot more.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
and that's great. It's holding yourself to a higher standard, and there's a lot of good things that can come out of that. So,
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
what are your plans for the future? I mean, are you going to keep making videos, or what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to keep making videos. 2022, the last 3 years, actually, I haven't got out nearly as much as I had gone out
Mhm.
before, 2020. So this next year is definitely gonna be a lot more just out shooting.
Great.
I'll be making videos, of course, but I have some big trips planned. Well, Chris and I are going to Patagonia again in April, so that one we
Wow.
are super excited for. That's actually how we met. We met signing up for a workshop in 2000 and was it 19? Yeah, 2018. Well, it was the one with Thomas Heaton and Brendan Vanson where they did the workshops in Patagonia the second year they did them.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
So we signed up together. Well, not together. We both signed up for the workshop, and then we started chatting online, and that's how we met. And we ended up, coming out to see each other. She was living in Switzerland, and then she would come out to see me, and I'd go out to see her. And then, we ended up meeting finally. Well, that was the workshop was how we had met. So fun, we
Yeah.
by the time we were on the workshop, we were already together and everything, which was
Wow.
pretty interesting. So,
So
but
you had flown out to meet her, and she'd flown to meet you before the workshop, even?
yeah, so I have,
Wow.
and I still have a normal, I guess call it 9 to 5 job. I do shift work, so I only work 14 days a month. So once a month, I would
Oh,
fly out to her to Switzerland, or she would fly here, or we would meet in like Iceland, or we met in Rome one time, and then
wow.
we, of course, we met down in Patagonia for the workshop. So for that first year that we dated, it was just us going back and forth, every month or so to
Mhm.
see each other for about a week, and then yeah, and then we got to the workshop. So we're finally heading back after, 3, 4 years, whatever it is. We're finally
Oh,
going back to Patagonia for fall colors, which, oh man,
oh,
super
that's
excited for.
that's on my bucket list. Patagonia in general, let alone fall colors. So,
Man, yeah, that place is it's Iceland's great. I've been to Iceland
mhm.
3 times. I absolutely love it. I love that place, but Patagonia is a different animal altogether. That place is the wildest place I have ever seen. It is the weather, the landscape, the animals. It's a wild, crazy place. And yeah, it's trip of a lifetime for sure.
Yeah. And when you going to do that?
So that'll be the end of April. I think the last 2 weeks of April, just into May, first few days of May, I think we're going to be there. Everything closes down right around the 1st of May down there because that starts their winter, and it's almost uninhabitable. I mean, all the hotels and the restaurants and everything shut down in the beginning of May because it's the weather there is so bad. I mean, it's bad all year around, right? The wind there makes Iceland wind look like, a slight breeze. It can get
Wow.
pretty crazy down there. But that's usually what makes the best photos, right?
That's right.
The
Yeah.
crazy, crazy conditions. So yeah, that's what we'll be down there for that. And then I got another trip, Monument Valley, coming up in
Nice.
March. Um, San Diego next week we'll be in San Diego, doing some seascapes. That's one thing I want to do more of too, is seascape photography. Man,
Escapes.
wish we can do more of that.
Yeah, and I live like 5 miles from the beach or so. So, but we don't have those kind of seascapes, that the West Coast has.
Right, right. Yeah, that
Um,
Big Sur coast is probably my favorite.
yeah.
It's a beautiful
Have you
place.
been up to Oregon, the
I
Oregon
have,
coast, or?
when I first got into, I think the first 2 years of my photography, I think I made it up there one winter, man, like Bandon area
Yeah.
and Brookings and down there, and then up to Cannon Beach and all that. Man, that's a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, it's on my list too. I'm going to Death Valley next week. So
Ah, nice.
I only
Yeah,
got
I
3 days, but I got
place.
3 full days in Death Valley. So I plan to use that time as wisely as I can. I won't be
Man, there's
doing
a
any videos because I'm terrible at those, but hopefully there'll be some photos coming out of it.
No, that's awesome. That's a fun place to shoot, man. That is,
Yeah.
it's such an interesting place. You wouldn't think, Death Valley, it's going to be a landscape photographer's paradise, but man, that place is amazing.
Excellent. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for taking the time. I mean, we've been on for almost an hour,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's been a great hour. So thank you very much for taking your time to talk with me and to talk to everybody that listens.
No, thank you very much for having me, man. I really appreciate it and had a lot of fun on here.
And I want to wish you the best of luck for Patagonia, for all that you plan to do, for your videos, for everything that you've got going on. And I want to wish you a very happy new year.
Thank you. Thank you. You as well.
All right, everybody, that is the end of this episode. And as always, get off the couch, grab your camera, escape, explore, and create. That's it.
All right. Hey, that was a pretty good ending. I like that.